Chapter 4. Their Fitlachoth First Battle. The newly formed half-fleet, the Latuch, took 3 months of joint training and gradually coalesced as a combat unit. Meanwhile, Operation Phantom Flame was progressing without a hitch, so much so that it struck the top brass as uncanny. Apart from the sporadic skirmish here and there, they'd encountered next to no UH resistance. At this point, Military Command Headquarters and the Glagam Byra Rainabur Phantom Flame Fleet Command Center were having trouble deciding whether the enemy really did lack the power to push back, or they were just angling for the perfect opportunity. To Lafier, however, the concerns of the top brass had little to do with her. While she was a royal princess of the Empire and a candidate for future Empress of the Ov, at present, she was nothing more than the captain of a bog-standard assault ship. She was in no position to be fretting over the overall tactical complexion of the war. What concerned Lafier was something else entirely, namely, the identity of her immediate superior. She and the Baronic House of Febdash had some history, and that history could not be called pleasant, not after she'd killed the head of that house. It was she who had taken the life of Cloer, the previous Baron of Febdash and older brother to the Hecto-Commander. Needless to say, she had a good reason to do the deed. The man had hamstrung her mission when time was of the essence, and she could think of no way to escape the virtual cage he'd placed her in apart from felling him. Yet Hecto-Commander Ados Rioa's attitude was extremely down to business, and she refrained from the smallest peep about their unfortunate past. Well, there's no use dwelling on it, Lafier had decided early on. It wasn't as though she wanted to make friends with Ados Rioa, and she didn't feel guilty over her brother's death. By that fact, Lafier was actually thankful Ados Rioa only interacted with her on an impersonal axis. The assault half-fleet Latuch, having completed its training, entered the Aptic star system. For the time being, its ships were to stay to patrol the system. Recreational facilities and mobile docks were already built and set in orbit around Aptic 3, the very picture of a functioning rear base. The system's governing body had yet to surrender, but none of the Star Force's personnel orbiting its planet let that give them pause. Every inhabited planet needed traders, but all the Star Forces needed were the various installations now floating in space. Among the NCCs, who hailed from land worlds, there were those who quickly came to miss the smell of soil, yet if any of the soldiers were to go down to a freshly seized planet, it'd blow into trouble in one way or another. There was no way the Star Forces would permit crew to touch down, the planet's status as conquered notwithstanding. The assault ship Bosroar finished its patrol around the Sodek Aptisur, Aptic Portal, area and came alongside the Rachnub, mobile base canteen, named De Kruk, where half of the crew had disembarked. Lafier and Lie-Wing star pilot Ekriua were the star pilots doing the ship sitting. Ekriua was playing with Daiho in a corner of the ship's bridge. The cat was another problem, though not a big enough problem to make her headache. From the day it first came aboard, Daiho had carried himself like the real captain. Was it really okay to pop his ego by sending him to Lokvakar? Lafier smiled wryly. Here she was, thinking about whether or not to send off the cat. This was just so different from the battlefield lifestyle she'd been envisioning before. Captain, there's something you need to know, said Ekriua, suddenly standing up, her face sober and serious. What? It's about this one, she said, hugging Daiho. Do you too wish to keep him aboard? Jin hadn't said as much, but she could sense how reluctant he was to let Daiho go. And now Ekriua was evidently enjoying the cat's company as well. Even more vexingly, she'd have to say she agreed with the both of them. I've run a comparison between his chances of survival staying on the Bosroar and his chances returning to Lokvakar. And? Lafier's tone was a little more fed up than she'd intended, but she had a feeling she knew where this was going. Allow me to provide some groundwork explanation before getting to my conclusions. Between Ekriua and Lafier, a variety of two-dimensional charts and readings appeared. Lafier's impression of the deputy star pilot was of a fairly taciturn lady. Therefore, Lafier could only stare as the normally reticent Ekriua promptly launched into a veritable report. I suppose this is certainly one way to kill some time, she reasoned. Your Lie-Wing star pilot Lin, I believe, called a voice. Jin stopped munching on his corn and looked behind him. There stood Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa. She had her bluish-silver hair, the exact same hue as her brother's, tied behind her, and she was gazing at Jin with her eyes the color of a leopard. They were on the central passage of the mobile base canteen de Kruk. This main street of sorts was the heart of de Kruk, and could itself be called by that name, for this canteen was shaped like a long, thin cylinder. The center of the tube was a passage visitors could move up and down, with shops lined up on each side, and separate passages above and below for employees and for goods to travel across. The place was chock full of sewage systems, warehouses, and more. The gravity was generated not by centrifugal force, but by a gravity control system, so the canteen didn't need to be ring-shaped. As they spoke, de Kruk drifted lackadaisically in orbit around Aptic 3 like a taut piece of string. And around that thread-like structure, a number of patrol ships and assault ships were bunched up. Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa. Jin rushed to salute her. I heard tell of you from my father. There was no way he could grasp her true intentions just going by her even tone of voice. His link to the Ados Raiwa family was rather complex. He got along well with her father. Despite their age gap, he could probably get away with calling himself a friend of his. But then there was Ados Raiwa's brother, the former Feb-Baron. Granted, Jin had taken no active part in it. To be fair, there was nothing he could do, but Jin still bore some of the responsibility for his demise. Jin tensed up. Ma'am, I owe your father a great deal, he stated. Don't get so stiff, she smiled faintly. What happened to my brother is water under the bridge. Oh, is that so? Jin blinked. Don't get me wrong, my brother's killing was nothing to celebrate. All right, of course. But we weren't close as siblings. Among other things, I didn't agree with how he treated our father. To think he would imprison his own parent, the star pilots and NCCs ambling on by swerved around the two of them, who were standing there, blocking the road. We never really got along, my brother and I, but what can I say? Jin spluttered. Well, I'll just say it's a shame about your brother. Thank you. It was a shame. Ados Raiwa put a finger to her forehead. The issue now is this noble rank. As you well know, Feb- is in the middle of nowhere. It's so remote that it takes several days to arrive at the next manor over. I've hated the place since I was a kid. I shudder at the thought of needing to live there. I was so relieved when my brother inherited the title, to be honest with you. I thought I'd be able to live and enjoy life in Lokvikar for the rest of my days. But then your princess squashed my life plans. He apologized reflexively, but stopped midway. I don't mean to be rude, but the captain isn't my princess. In case that's whom you're referring to. Don't let it get to you. It's just a figure of speech. Jin worked up the nerve to ask, are you, sure you don't resent us? Ados Raiwa raised an eyebrow. From what I heard from my father, I thought you'd be cleverer than that. I apologize, said Jin glumly. Even if I did resent you, there's no way I'd tell you that, is there? She shrugged. Besides, I could exact my revenge on you using my position as your superior. If I held a grudge, I'd just look for a chance to seize my vengeance without telling you a thing. I see, Jin nodded prudently. But you were saying about your noble rank. Oh, that's no big deal. It all depends on how you think about it. Being a head of a noble house has its perks, and even a shabby little domain like that can be turned into something cozier with a little effort. I think I might even follow in my dear brother's footsteps and hire a bevy of handsome young men as my servant vassals. But that'll have to wait until the war is over. That's a great idea, said Jin. He had no idea what to say to that, so he just went with the safest answer. In any case, be sure to relay what I said to your little princess. Tell her I don't resent either of you. That I've resigned myself to my rank as a twist of fate. Why haven't you told her directly? Ados Raiwa knitted her lustrous eyebrows. That would be unpleasant. Unpleasant? Yes. She's an Avriel princess. I can talk to her as a soldier, but as an individual, how could I strike any kind of relaxed conversation with her? If you say so. Jin sighed. Life was so unfair. There were plenty of people Jin didn't particularly want to talk to, but it seemed there was no one in the galaxy who disliked talking to Jin. Don't forget to tell her, Ados Raiwa insisted. I won't, Jint nodded limply. Suddenly, an alarm resounded through the whole of Dekruk. What the? Ados Raiwa peeked at her wrist gear. All around, star pilots and NCCs alike looked at their left wrists in unison. The sight was almost farcical. No different himself, Jint looked at his own. Assault Subfleet Latouch, all soldiers, 6 unidentified patrol ship space-time bubbles flying toward the Sadek Wimber portal. Likely the enemy's reconnaissance in force. Crew on standby, return to your positions immediately. My, how dreadful. Ados Raiwa didn't spare Jint another glance as she stomped off. Ekriua was still in the middle of her presentation when the alarm rang. Tell me some other time. For now, you must, but the diagrams changed before she got to issuing her orders. Noted alongside the names of all the crew in the register were numbers and info, such as whether they were aboard a ship. The numbers indicated how long it would take the crew that wasn't aboard ship to embark. This was exactly what Leifir wanted to know. It will be approximately 12 minutes and 37 seconds before we're all assembled, said Ekriua emotionlessly. Attention. This is your captain, Leifir announced over the ship's speakers. Any crew who have yet to do so are to assume their posts in 10 minutes, she commanded. That second, the register of names switched out into a process file for the operations needed to set sail. Each item on the list was either blue or red. Blue means it can go ahead immediately, Ekriua muttered. She's surprisingly attentive, Leifir thought of the otherwise uncommunicative deputy star pilot. Her opinion of her certainly improved. In the midst of handing down directives where she noticed things could be done, she could feel the excitement and joy boil up bit by bit within her. This was her first battle. Of the star pilots who had disembarked, Samson was the first to get back aboard, a pill gripped in his hand. As soon as he plopped into his seat, he tossed the pill into his mouth. Gurg, that's gross, he grimaced, gabbing to no one in particular. I hate how these sober-uppers feel. He must have been drinking earlier. That drug took the alcohol out of his bloodstream. With Samson, the custodian of the ship's engines, aboard, they could finally set about preparing to take off in earnest. Samson gave the room 3 or so scans to see which subordinates were there and working. At last, Sabash silently glided in and took up his designated place. Jint was the last to arrive. You're late, Jint, said Leifir. My bad, I apologize, Captain. Including the NCCs, the entire crew returned 92 seconds ahead of the ETA. All right. Shut all switch gates, ordered Leifir. The bridge suddenly turned lively. Detaching connecting passageways and preparing accommodation. Preparations complete. Rev the anterior attitude control engines at minimal propulsion. Commencing propulsion. Propulsion underway. Sever the connecting passages, shouted Leifir. The assault ship Bosroar cleared off the mobile canteen. Captain, a transmission, reported Ekriua. This is your commander. Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa's holovision image emerged. We have orders from above. We are to capture the unidentified space-time bubbles, and, as soon as we establish they are the enemy, annihilate them. I'm sending the coordinates of our point of assembly so that each ship gathers together as soon as possible. Any questions? Ados Raiwa's hologram cocked her head slightly, waiting for questions, but no ship asked any. Very well. The Sarer S.Y. Mar, unit commanders for Million lips curled up. I'm sure that for many of you, this is your first real battle. It is mine as well. The unidentified space-time bubbles are most likely the enemy conducting reconnaissance in force. What could the units at Wimber have been doing, I wonder? On second thought, I suppose it was wrong to expect much of mere lookout units. Putting that aside, we have to hand it to them. This is an extremely brave move, Ados Raiwa saluted. Let's give these brave men and women a proper welcome. And with that, she vanished from their screens, still saluting. For small vessels like assault ships, it was the captain's job to pilot one while in 3 space. Leifir hooked her circlet's access cables into the ports and switched her Frocross to beyond ship mode. Information rushed from the countless sensors installed in the hull of Bosroar into her brain. She slipped her left hand into the control gauntlet. Attitude control shifted the ship's orientation, and with low-temperature propulsion akin to a soft zephyr, they pushed to a safe distance from Dekruk. Their immediate vicinity was already full of ships that had likewise gotten their takeoff preparations in order. They had to open up a safe distance away from those ships as well. A number of ships had begun gaining speed. Lafier reconfirmed the point of assembly using her frocross. It was right by the aptic portal. She pointed the ship's bow toward the assembly point's future coordinates with her control gauntlet. Main engines ignition, Lafier ordered. They could feel the tremors resulting from the warring of matter and antimatter from their seats. She bent her left hand's fingers such that they accelerated at max speed. Her frocross allowed her to sense the long thin Decruc canteen fly backward together with Aptic 3 as they shot forward. And the race is on. Samson strummed his fingers. The main engines he'd painstakingly outfitted were working beautifully. They could feel swathes of space blow right by. It was a difficult sensation to describe. The consort ships scattered around flew all at once behind them. There were, of course, some ships among them that had already taken off beforehand. The boss roar chased after them with all its might. The ships that had lagged behind soon raced to meet them. It was times like these that made Lafier grateful from the bottom of her heart that she was born in of. Battle line ships, which could not accelerate to their smaller ship speeds, lay ahead. If they kept this path, they'd crash right into one. With a slight tweak of a finger, Lafier corrected course. With that, the battle line ship slipped down from nearby. "Captain, a transmission from the battle line ship Rimsom," reported Ekriwa. "They're saying that close shave was a violation of safety standards." All Lafier thought was, interesting, so that battle line ship's the Rimsom. "They're requesting to speak to you directly, Captain." "I'm busy," she replied. "Tell them I'm not available. Besides, it's not like battle line ships will be in on the action." Ekriwa relayed her captain's words and peered at the message screen with some interest, before whispering, "They're angry." In the meantime, they maneuvered to the battle line ship's front, adjusted their path to follow the path they ought to have taken to begin with, and then proceeded at max speed, as though to spray the bow of the Rimsom with their propulsor flames. Senior Star Pilot called Lafier. "Are there any ships belonging to our unit in front?" "Just one, Captain," answered Sabash. "Which is it?" "The Omger, lead assault ship, the Gamma Ogre." Lead assault ships were the flagships of assault units. As such, Unit Commander Ados Raiwa was aboard it. "How far is it?" "Approximately 2 Sadek." "It looks as though we need to let the Hecto Commander lead the charge," said Lafier, biting her lips slightly. Given all assault ships had the same specs, it was obvious the ship that left first would outstrip the rest. This just meant that the Gamma Ogre had gotten its unmooring affairs in order faster. She was a tad mad at herself. Eventually, they reached the zone where they were to begin decelerating. The Rilbidok area of her brain made the trajectory calculations subconsciously for her, and this juncture was no exception. She knew when to decelerate instinctually. She temporarily ceased propulsion, turned the ship's orientation right around, and stoked the fullest propulsor flames once again in the opposite direction. From the bow, they witnessed their fellows in war do likewise, their flames blossoming one after the other in the cold heavens. They were like unto a waterfall cascading from Decruc to the aptic portal, as each individual droplet splashed with fearsome destructive force. Taken together, the exhaust of each ship formed a hot mist suffusing the void. Bit by bit, the assembly point approached. Not many other ships had made it to the vicinity quite yet. "Captain," said Ekriwa, "we've received the signal to assemble." "Link it up to my frocross," Lafier ordered. One of the ships gathered around the aptic portal began pulsating in her mind's eye, the lead assault ship Gamma Ogre. "Captain, a communication from the Gamma Ogre," said Ekriwa. "Put it through." "So you're in the lead, Deca Commander Avriel," said Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa with wonderment. "Stay there and stand by until the rest of the ships arrive." "Yes, ma'am." Lafier saluted, and the video cut out. Before long, all 6 ships in their unit had assembled in the standard ring formation, waiting for their orders from the Glagum Iadbirer, Subfleet Command Center. "We've received our briefing," said Ekriwa. Projecting map of planar space. The map of planar space surfaced on the bridge's floor. Lafier gazed down at it. The aptic portal was represented on the map as a sunken spiral. Its concavity indicated a relative sparsity of space-time particles. The blue dots circling the portal were patrolling allies. The area surrounding the portal was nearly completely level, which meant that the density of space-time particles was that even across this zone of planar space. In a corner of that space, 6 dots color-coded yellow formed a line. The description text beside the yellow blips read, "Group of unidentified space-time bubbles. Extremely likely to be the enemy. Mass readings point to patrol ships. Their objective is probably to grasp the strength of our troops in Aptic and Wimber." "They're not far at all," stated Lafier. Broken lines stretched from the yellow dots, displaying their projected paths. At this rate, they were going to pass right by the Aptic portal. "Looks like we need to get down to business if we want to fulfill our objective," said Sabash, arms crossed. "That's fine by me. What say we get this over with?" said Samson. "There's a bottle of booze at the watering hole with my name on it, and let me tell you, those curves are something else. I promise I'll drink lots more of you soon." "Speaking of which, who wants some beverages?" said Jint. "I mean, we've probably got time until we get our orders, so..." Diaho leapt up onto the captain's lap and curled up. A jolt of tension raced through the bridge. Jint. In that moment, Lafier had forgotten her personal vow never to address the quartermaster Liewing Star pilot by his personal name in front of her subordinates. "Beverages are fine, yes, but how about you do something about your cat? I'll have peach juice, by the way. You want it hot, with some lemon floating in it, right, Captain?" Jink got to his feet. The cat carrier was already on hand. "You had to go and make life difficult for yourself," chided Ekriwa, picking Diaho up by the scruff. "Why not stick by my side?" "Lokvakar's far, far away," she continued. He is my cat, you know," griped Jint, picked him up off of her. "Are you jealous?" The deputy star pilot locked eyes with Jint and said, "I'll have Soic Asa, black tea. I take it cold and with lemon flavoring." "Roger that." Jint pushed Diaho into his cage. When the carrier lid closed shut, the cat cried pitifully. "Could you clear us to drink stuff with alcohol?" requested Samson. "That is a joke, right, Supervisor?" Lafier asked in gentle tones. "Of course it is, Captain. Just wanted to lighten the mood, but I guess my quips need work." Samson flashed Jint a sorrowful mug. "Thanks, kiddo, I'm good." "Roger. But please don't call me kiddo. Call me when you get yourself a love triangle that doesn't involve a cat, and I'll stop calling you kiddo." "Right then, please keep calling me kiddo." Yet Lafier hadn't failed to notice how he and Ekriwa each glanced her way earlier. It wasn't clear what it was all about, but it aggravated her all the same. "Get me some Soic Ala green tea," said Sabash. "We should have leaves from the Druhan Ionir, Count Dom of Ionic. Use those, and add a good amount of sugar." "Understood." Jint entered their orders into the console. Samson watched in envy as they sipped at their drinks, pining for the bottle waiting for him at Dekruk. Then, a message from the lead assault ship.